Hey 90 Day fam, coming up on Skipping the Sheets, who showed up at the Hunt for Love tell-all? Elise and Cole get cozy after he spread lies about her, and the proof that Tim and Jeniffer are now hanging out. Did they rekindle their romance? I watched 90 Day Hunt for Love Between the Sheets episode 9, The Girl in a Love Square, and did the research on what's going on with this cast in real time so that you don't have to. This week, let's kick things off by diving into some breaking news. I cannot wait till the end of the show to discuss that the Hunt for Love tell-all has been filmed. We knew that there would be one, and there's a lot to catch up on. Courtney and Elise dropped the news in an interview with Access Hollywood. They say the cast got all together, I assume, in New York City, and it wasn't just the 90 Days and the Hunt for Love normies at the tell-all. Oh no. They assured us that some of the 90 Day cast members' exes showed up too. So they say it is going to be unhinged and messy. Also, there was a little tease where Courtney said, who you think is together is not, and who you never would have guessed would be together are. I cannot wait, but let's talk a little bit about what exes may have shown up here. There are a lot of them that we could just cross right off the list, and there are no signs, no spoilers or rumors as to who may have showed their face. Could it be Sophie, Rob's ex? She is definitely at the top of the list. She was just on Last Resort with Rob not long ago, so I would assume that she is in the good graces of the network. However, Tiffany's ex, Ronald, she is just recently divorced from him. He is still in South Africa with his new girl, scamming fans. He is definitely not showing up at the tell-all. Who else could it be? Well, Tim and Jennifer's exes are already there. We can't even remember Courtney's exes' names. Could it be Pedro, Chantel's ex-husband, that maybe showed up to offer some insight into what she's going through now or give his opinion on her possible same-sex relationship? One ex I am almost certain we won't see is Colt's ex-wife, Larissa. So she is currently airing on that E! Show, Botched Presents Plastic Surgery Rewind, which is fantastic. You should all be tuning in. And I can assume that that involved a contract. She was fired by TLC years ago for doing Cam Soda, and I do not expect to see her on the network ever again, unfortunately, because that would be awesome. So the prime suspects, I think, to show up at the Hunt for Love tell-all would be Sophie and possibly Pedro. We will have to wait and see. So whenever they film the tell-all, I'm assuming it's in the last few weeks because it looks like a lot of the other cast members have been in New York. Jeniffer posted that she was there since like July 9th. So they've been there. And then Courtney and Elise clearly left the tell-all and went to LA for a press tour. That's where they sat down for this interview. And they weren't just hanging out with each other now that they're calling each other BFFs. They were also spotted with Sean and Aaliyah and Sophie. So this is back in LA, assuming they filmed the tell-all in New York, and maybe Sophie was there too, but it looks like maybe they're all friends now. Possibly they met at the tell-all. And kind of a surprise to see Sophie and Elise hanging out together, considering both of their history with Rob. To be a fly on the wall, but maybe we will get to see it all. Not only that, I also mentioned how Tim and Jeniffer are hanging out currently. This is true. They were photographed together just this last weekend in New York, where Jeniffer probably is still hanging out after filming the tell-all. And they were at TNA's Slammiversary. You guys probably don't know what that is. It's a wrestling thing. Tim is hanging out in my world with my buddies over there, and it looks like he had a ton of fun. Wrestling is Tim's thing, so it makes sense that he would be there. Why is Jeniffer at TNA Slammiversary? Nobody goes to that or even watches it. So it's a bit of a question mark. It looks like Tim maybe invited Jeniffer to join him there. She is from Colombia, where they love wrestling too. I know this. I used to work for WWE, and I think it's pretty cool that they were hanging out together at this event. However, I did a lot of research, looky, checking out all the stories, and it seems like there was very little interaction between the two of them. They want to shock us by both being at the same event and posting about it, but they clearly weren't like partying together, cuddled up, hanging out. So there's your answer. Probably nothing romantic. Now, here's one more little tidbit of news. The show is currently casting. They have put out a notice, they say, for The Other Way, 90 Day, the OG series, and Before the 90 Days. So if you are dating someone internationally or want to be on TV, there's a casting call making the rounds on the internet right now and even being promoted by some of the cast members like Chantel. So if you would like your moment, if you are ready for love, maybe you could be on TV too. I would love that. Let's be friends. Let me know what's going on. Break that NDA. I'm married and I know too much about these shows, so it won't be me, but if it's you, good luck to that. Now let's jump into our Hunt for Love recap. We are getting more of this girls' night, boys' night fallout. This is like the third week in a row, but we have to get to the bottom of these rumors, which Elise got really hot about. And one thing that I noticed when watching the show was how she continually called Jeniffer the B word. Okay, and on Between the Sheets, Jeniffer says that's really the only word that Elise ever used. I noticed it because I think it's a pretty base word. What does it even really mean? So overused. It's the first insult that anyone goes to for a woman, and I honestly think that it's sort of an indication of a lack of intelligence. You don't know how to express yourself emotionally, or maybe you don't have a vast vocabulary, so you just keep calling somebody a bitch. I don't like it. Mix that with Elise's confusion when Tim was trying to ask her about her body count number. I know math is hard for me too, but I'm starting to question Elise's intelligence just a tiny bit. Anytime she's on camera, all I can focus on is how skinny she is and how she has the perfect body, and perhaps, you know, God gave her that and some other stuff, and maybe not some things. Let's move on, because this doesn't sound very nice. So what about what Rob has to say about Elise? Well, he says she lost control over the reality that she is jealous of Jeniffer. Ooh, he put that so eloquently, and I thought that makes a lot of sense. However, the important thing here is what Rob said after. He says, Elise always liked me, and that's part of her problem with Jeniffer. And Rob also says it was mutual. He admits that he did have some kind of feelings for Elise, or something that was developing between the two of them at the beginning days at the resort. So it was kind of satisfying to hear Rob actually admit it, because there's been much ado made about what went down between the two of them, and Elise was looking a little bit foolish. So now we know. And I can imagine that when the cast is talking so much about their feelings from day to day, they themselves get a little confused about what has been happening and how they are feeling about people. During the boys' fight, when the guys are sitting watching it, Cole says that Carlo acted out of character during this and attacked Jay because they're living in a pressure cooker. Let's talk a little bit about that. I think this is pressure from production, right, to really perform on camera. So it's like maybe Carlo was cool with Jay taking Tiffany on a date. Maybe they did talk about it. But then when they're there at the party and the drinks are flowing and it's guys' night, you can bet that the producers were like, bro, we got to get this on camera. You guys got to talk about this. What, you're just cool with it? But that's not cool. You've been seeing Tiffany, and now like you should hear the things that Jay's saying about you, or whatever it is very easy, I'm sure, when they have no connection to the outside world to get in these people's minds. And for Cole to kind of stand up for Carlo and go, yeah, that was out of character for him, and admit that they are all sort of doing things that they maybe normally wouldn't, is a good reminder for us all. Tiffany, on the other hand, kind of liked that the guys got all hot under the collar for her. There's been a lot of conversation about that. Was Tiffany into it? Is she impressed by it? Does she like it? Well, yeah, she admitted on Between the Sheets that she was pretty flattered. And I want to point out here that it's not like Tiffany is being a Jeniffer. Like, oh, I want all the boys to like me and fight over me. I think it's more about Tiffany is newly divorced now. I don't think her divorce was even final when she was there. But her relationship with Ronald was long over. She had had gastric sleeve surgery, lost 100 pounds. I think there's a little bit of Tiffany being like, yeah, new me, I'm hot now. I can get guys. They all want me. Okay. She said flattered, I believe, and I think that's pretty sweet. So you go, Tiffany. Well, Tim, on the other hand, is pretty ticked off that no one suspects that there's anything going on between him and Tiffany. I thought this was so funny. Online, they're cuddling up, posting, trying to make fans talk about maybe there's a real relationship between the two of them. And even here this week, we see Tim going, why doesn't anybody wonder? We're sleeping in the same bed every night. And then Tim goes on to try to make us all wonder. I think he's probably insulted that people think he doesn't have game, that he can be in bed with Tiffany and nothing can go down. So Tim takes this moment to drop a little bomb on us. Production asks him, well, has anything ever happened between you and Tiffany? And he plays it so cool. And he's like, if it did, I would know better than to talk about it or to think about it, because we have a great friendship and I just wouldn't want to mess it up. Nice try, Tim. Not buying it. Sorry. He's trying to imply that they've hooked up. I am certain that they haven't. Tim, if you want people to think you have game, then spit some game and get a woman and tell us all about it. Maybe we might need pictures and videos for evidence, actually. Also, Tim with the body spray asphyxiating everyone with your designer chemicals. Please, no. If I ever find myself in a room with Tim and he's spraying it like that, it's going to be the last time. I am a fragrance-free girly, and I would like to keep it that way. And I think that is a personal decision, and I do not like Tim invading everyone's space with his scents. Tim did start a pretty interesting conversation, though, on the bus about can men and women really be friends with each other? So the interesting reveal here is that Rob is talking to cameras, to producers, and he says, listen, if Elise was his girl, he would not let her be friends with Cole because Elise and Cole almost hooked up one night. This is the first we've heard of this. Tell me more, Rob. Okay, Rob says that he and Jeniffer stopped by Carlo's room one evening. This sounds like it was maybe early on in the retreat. And that when they got there, Elise and Cole were in bed together, like under the covers, snuggled up. And that later, Cole said, oh, he was just trying to make Jeniffer jealous when she showed up with Rob. Well, Rob's like, you were already in bed with Elise when we came to the door. So he called BS on that. And I am kind of wondering about Elise. She struck out with Rob, but she seems very close with Carlo. And now we're hearing this about Cole. Maybe when they said in the interview this week that we would be very shocked at who are together, maybe Elise is one of those people who is going to surprise us with her man. Funny that Elise was in Carlo's room that evening with Cole because she says Tim was the one she actually hung out a lot in the evenings with, and that she would go over to his room, watch TV, do face masks, that whole thing, and that Tim would make her watch him on TV. Like, I'm assuming watching episodes of him, and if she would talk over TV Tim, he would stop and rewind so that she could make sure that she got all of the Tim TV moments. I don't even know what to think about that. You hear also that some of the cast never watches and doesn't want to see themselves, and I can certainly relate to that, editing my own stuff. So Tim just loving it when he seems like someone who lacks confidence and is insecure, but he's watching himself back like, hey, look how cute and cool I am. I like to hear that. Okay, you go, Tim. You are cool. And if you have to watch yourself on TV to convince yourself of that, then that is just fine by me. Now we're going to hear a little bit more about what Cole was up to. He seemed like the good boy, right? But get this, in a never before seen scene, Jeniffer and Cole talk. And Jeniffer says that Tiffany told her Cole was visiting Tiffany and other girls. It wasn't just about Cole and Tiffany being close. It was about him getting close with and talking about his relationship with Jeniffer with all the other singles and the women at the resort. Tiffany, however, says, that is not true. She says, I am still close with Cole and we talk often, and he did keep coming to me even after Jeniffer was like, why are you doing this? You're coming to me with the ham and the whole thing. Tiffany's like, he and I have a relationship. Actually, now that I'm thinking about how they said you'd be surprised at who's together, and Tiffany very pointedly saying on Between the Sheets that her and Cole talk and that they are close, man, wouldn't that be a shocker if Tiffany and Cole are the couple to come out of all this. Jeniffer explains that Tiffany was really the conduit between the 90-day singles and the normie singles. And we do see that she's getting along with everybody. She's hanging out with everyone. I think she's just a really likable person and probably easy to get along with. But so Jennifer's like, that's why Tiffany was the person who started all the rumors. She was the source because she was talking to everyone. Although on Between the Sheets, it is finally revealed that the source of the rumor that Rob and Elise were hooking up was actually Carlo. He admits it and says he's sorry, and also sort of seems to inadvertently discover and realize that it was him. I think he just isn't really playing the game like some of the other cast were, and that he probably really did accidentally set that all off and didn't even realize it. So there's our answer to the big question about the rumor. Let's get one more little tidbit though from that. Cole is talking on Between the Sheets, and he says, listen, I did think about getting off, he calls it the Jen coaster, the Jeniffer roller coaster, after every single interaction I had with her. Okay, that shines so much light on it. We've been wondering every time, why is he believing her lies? Why is he still hanging out with her? He says it's because he had no other options at the resort. What? That's a very lame excuse to put yourself through all that, Cole. But he really goes on to say, yeah, there just wasn't anyone else there really. And again, is this production pressuring people to really perform on camera? I'm starting to wonder a little bit more about that. We pay attention to all the little things here. And we have been paying attention to what I was calling Courtney's love square, her and Nikki and Usman and Colt, but that's not the love square that's even being referred to for the title of the show this week. But what about Courtney and Colt and Usman? There wasn't a lot of talk about Colt's injury. After we had the big ambulance ride and all of that last week, there wasn't a whole lot of follow-up to it. So in that interview that Courtney and Elise did with Access Hollywood, she gives us a little more detail. She says, Colt fractured his knee and his femur in 5 different places, and also reiterates that the doctors were shocked. This is like a gnarly injury that is something that's hard to do to oneself. And she goes a little bit more into this 1-hour ambulance ride from Tulum to the bigger hospital. And Courtney says that was so scary because apparently there's some kind of major artery in your femur that was fractured for Colt. And the bumpy ambulance ride could have triggered some internal bleeding for Colt, which of course is extremely dangerous. Now, Courtney also reveals she was Colt's power of attorney if something would have happened to him while he was under anesthesia getting his surgery. Wow, how scary. Can you guys imagine suddenly someone that you barely even know? She couldn't even get him to ask her on a date, and now all of a sudden she's his caretaker, his attorney, his family, basically the person who's gonna decide whether to pull the plug if something really goes left. That's an exaggeration, of course, but Courtney and Rob do joke about that on Between the Sheets. Of course, Rob thinks it's funny, and Courtney sort of engages a little bit. We've seen her cry over the situation with Colt and really be affected, and this was one moment of levity here where she does kind of laugh about the idea of, oh, I have to go party, so let me just pull the plug. And I thought that that might be a little indication of how Courtney feels about Colt now, even though what she went through with him was so traumatic. Colt says it breaks his heart to see Courtney cry because she was such an angel, he calls her, and really goes on and on about how important it was for him to have her there and how well she cared for him at this time. So maybe he feels differently about Courtney right now than Courtney feels about him. The rumor is, I've told you guys, that Courtney took Colt to her parents' house in Florida and that he overstayed his welcome. So it sounds like things really fell apart between them. I'm thinking that probably it all got hashed out at the tell-all and we will eventually find out everything. Ooh, I just cannot wait. Ooh. Also, we finally got the later this season on the Hunt for Love episode at the end. So that means that they are looking to finally maybe wrapping up these episodes so that we can get to the tell-all, which I hope is at least 3 parts, right? Maybe 4. Sometimes they do too much, but there is enough to discuss there. So let's wrap this up with a couple of random reveals. Tim said on Between the Sheets that he has spent a whopping $150,000 fixing his teeth. That's why he didn't really want to get in the middle of it when Carlo and Jay threw down, is because he said it's not even plastic surgery or anything cosmetic, just keeping his mouth the way it's supposed to be has cost him over $150,000. So that was a shocker. And one more little thing, we got 2 shots of Shelby on Between the Sheets. Fired elementary school principal Shelby. If you want to know more about that or aren't sure what I'm talking about, go back and watch the previous episodes of Skipping the Sheets. She is so cute. We didn't get to hear her speak. I don't know that we ever will, but I just sort of like a Where's Waldo on this now at this point. How about what's gonna go down next week? It sounds like it's gonna be a good one. Okay, the last couple episodes, I have to say, it didn't feel like a whole lot actually happened. Didn't feel like we were moving the storyline forward too much. So next week, in addition to Rob getting nipple shamed, which won't move things too far forward, Elise proposes a fresh start to everyone. So hey, is this a reset? Could we all start over? And is this maybe when these connections that we think are brewing are really gonna spark? Also, Chantel and Joe hang out again. We've been wondering where the hell is Chantel, and she reveals her cup size. Spoiler alert, it's L. Holy moly, I'm guessing there'll be a lot of internet chatter about that. And what's going on with Usman? He's going to console Courtney and then on the other hand, accuse her of emotional manipulation. I'm thinking that's not going to go over too well considering how much we are all liking Courtney and feeling bad for her at this point. And majorly next week, Chantel and Colt are finally going to address her flirting with him on the bus. Weeks ago, I told you about this. They dropped it on Between the Sheets, and there has not been one more word about it since. Colt claims that Chantel was in his face, she was touching his leg, and that was a point in which Colt thought, hey, I might have a chance with this chick. So I am dying to hear what Chantel has to say about that. She was admittedly intoxicated. Does she even remember? And how will she respond when Colt says, hey, remember our flirty bus ride? Because we all do. Hey. And if you guys want to keep up with what's going on Hunt for Love and all the rest of everything in the 90-day universe, you have to subscribe here to my channel. I would love it. These go up on Tuesdays, and it's also available in podcast form if you want to listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get those. You can do that too. Make sure you poke around, though, on my YouTube channel. I just dropped a big update on every couple from The Other Way, seasons 4 through 6, whether they are together or divorced, but it just got so much deeper than that. You guys have no idea. Scamming, cheating, and a lot of kind of really yucky triggering stuff, actually. But go check that out if you really want a deep dive. There's more there too, like whatever happened to baby girl Lisa, Usman's wife. Yes, you can get all the answers on my channel, so make sure that you subscribe. And I will see you next week for more Skipping the Sheets. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.